It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio with us once again today. Ken Zoll is back with us. He's the Executive Director of the Verde Valley Archaeology Center and Museum. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Up there in Camp Verde.
It's a pleasure.
You sent us some really awesome news late last week, and I talked to you last week, but then I thought, you know what, instead of doing a story, which we did, I've got it right here in front of me, just a little reader story, I thought, you know, I'm going to have Ken come in and talk about this great news you received. So why don't we start right there?
Well, yeah, we've been working for well over a year with the developer of some property in Camp Verde. It was originally slated to be a housing development, some 200 plus homes. And because the property was near the Verde River, he had to receive a permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, because obviously you move some soil, you're going to move the flow into the river. And so one of the primary requirements of that permit is you do an archaeological investigation to be sure you're not messing up anything that's prehistoric. And during that process, they found in this one particular parcel that it contained anywhere from 8 to 10 pit houses, and these were structures of prehistoric people that go back to about 500 AD. And as they were digging those up, one of those pit houses, they actually brought up human remains, and that put a big stall on everything and had to take care of it under the Native American Grave Repatriation Act. But they totally excavated that particular pit house, removed the remains according to law, worked with the Hopi, Yavapai, Apache Nation, did a reburial, etc. And so once that was all done, basically the report was put on a shelf. And because we got started in the Verde Valley, and actually in Camp Verde, obviously, we were reviewing all of these reports that have been done about excavations in the area. And I'm reading this report, and it says there are 8 to 10 pit houses on this piece of property that would benefit from further investigation. Well, that kind of like perked up my ears.
Of course it would.
And so I contacted the developer, who lives in Gilbert, Arizona, and basically I said, can we play in your dirt, you know, until you start building homes? And we'd like to excavate those pit houses, get the data out of it before you start building basements or whatever and destroy it all. And so he responded and he said, well, he says, I'd consider it, but I don't want any liability. I don't want any costs. If there's any more bodies, I don't want any part of it, because it's a long and onerous process. And so we wrote up a very large, lengthy legal document saying the center would assume all liability, all costs. This is what we will do. This is how we'll leave the property when we're done. And if you decide you need to build, we'll get out of there, and you give us 120-day notice.
That process alone, how long did that take?
That was probably only about 6 to 8 weeks to get all of that put together. Then we sent it to him, and he basically sat on it for about four months, studying it. And then all of a sudden one day, I just happened to be in the center, and he happened to show up one day.
Nice.
I had never been to the center, and he had read about us but not been there, so I gave him a tour. And then he said, let's sit down and talk about this document. So we did. And he basically said, well, I don't know if I want to be bothered, you know, with all of this. Most of the artifacts, or most of the pit houses, are on this one 6-acre parcel. Maybe I'll just donate that 6-acre parcel to you so you can do what you need to do and I don't have to be involved in it. He says, but I want a conceptual plan. What are you going to do with that land, you know, with the excavations, and what are you going to do with it when you're done with the excavations? And then I'll decide whether I want to give you that land. Well, the 6-acre parcel was actually part of a 15.25-acre parcel. And so, you know, they always say, you don't ask, you don't get. So
right.
I gave him a conceptual plan for all 15 acres. What would I do with 15 acres instead of just the 6? And after and that was all new buildings, museum, repository, etc. And he called up a couple days later, and he said, after I got your concept, he says, I was so upset. I had to sit down and calm myself down, because they always blame us developers for being greedy. and here I offer you 6 and you ask for 15.
So, cats on the other hand now, okay.
Right. And so he says, but as I sat there and thought about it, I thought, wow, what an opportunity. How unique this could be for the Verde Valley if you could pull something like this off. And so that then started about a 12-month process of negotiations of what we would do with the property. It required zoning changes. It required roads being put in. It required water lines being put in, a whole variety of things. The town needed to get involved with it, et cetera. So it took almost a year of going back and forth with things with his attorneys and our attorneys and back and forth before we finally got to a development agreement that he and the town could agree on, and that all of that was concluded last week, and we signed all the papers, and the property is now ours.
So you got all the 15 acres.
We got all 15.28 acres. Right.
How much is the land worth?
The value of the property, he had it appraised. Obviously, you know, he would like a tax deduction for the donation, and so it was appraised at $1.37 million for that property. And he had asked us, and we agreed that we would basically, to put some skin in the game, we would give him $250,000 for it. And so in effect, he donated $1.12 million of the property to us, and we have to come up with $250,000 over the next 5 years to pay him back.
Okay, so that's probably plan one. Come up with $250,000.
Right. We're starting our capital campaign shortly. Our board is reviewing the materials and the plan. The plan is we will start with what's called a quiet phase of the capital campaign, which basically means for the next 6 months we will talk to members, to local people, kind of a low profile, and try to raise about $500,000 that would pay that off, pay for the water line to put in, and to start to pay for the archaeological excavations that are required, at least of the property where we're going to disturb and build buildings. Next March, we would start during our archaeology fair what's called the public phase, and that means that's when we will start doing print advertising, social media advertising, put out fancy brochures, etc., to raise funds from a broader audience outside of the Verde Valley area. So for the next 6 months, people within the Verde Valley would have the opportunity to be the first to put their name on different features if they choose to make that kind of contribution.
Sure. Okay, let's take our first break. All right, that's a great update right there. Verde Valley Archaeology Center and Museum Executive Director Ken Zoll in studio today. I'm Paul David. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Orkin has pest control down to a science.
When your business chooses Orkin's Precision Protection Program, you get a tailored pest control program for your specific industry and environment.
Your business can benefit from over a century of experience, training, and scientific knowledge that define the Orkin man.
Maximum protection, minimum exposure, backed by one of the industry's most comprehensive guarantees.
Choose your locally owned and operated Northern Arizona Orkin and get more than an exterminator. Get an expert.
You taught him how to hit a baseball, how to hit a receiver, the strike zone, the net. You taught him how to hit the upper corner. You even taught him how to hit the open man. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit?
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back to Countywide. Ken Zola in studio today with the Verde Valley Archaeology Center and Museum. Now we've got the land,
Yes.
which is great. That's just a huge chunk of the puzzle for you.
That's a major accomplishment. We never would have thought that we'd be where we are today 4 years ago when we got started.
You getting tired of picking your chin up off the floor every time this happens? Huh?
I've had a lot of weak-kneed moments, like what the heck just happened?
Right.
It's just, I guess it's just meant to be. That's all I can say. You know?
Now you had to come up with the idea for what's going to go on this property. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about the structure itself, because we'll have some photos coming up on the screen. So people listening on the radio, I don't think we're really going to be talking too much about the photos, but if they come back, they can watch the show and see what the photos look like. But anyways, tell us a little bit about the structures that are going to be built.
Sure. Well, of the 15 acres in the proposal that we gave, and that is what we're pursuing, the 6 acres where most of the archaeological features are, we're going to build an archaeological park. And we're currently going out for grants to design the park, and so we'll be excavating the pit houses over the next 5 to 10 years, and we're going to develop a trail system going through native vegetation and around the various pit houses, so people can see completed pit house excavations in process, and those have not been done yet. And there'll be interpretive signs, benches, ramadas for people to roam around. So it'll be a nice public park. Within the structures itself, obviously the reason we got started was we needed to have a local repository. So as things are excavated, like we just received the Gray Fox development material from the Cottonwood area, we need to store them locally. And so since we have been certified by Arizona State Museum as a repository, excavations in the future theoretically should come to us first. And so we'll be building a 6,000 square foot repository for that material, a 6,000 square foot museum, including a children's area, so we can exhibit that material. There'll be a permanent exhibit of Yavapai, Apache, Hopi history of the area, a traveling exhibit area, and a rotating exhibit area. There'll be a 9,000 square foot conference training center that'll include a 200-seat auditorium for films and lectures, etc., and 4 large classrooms that could be combined for large conventions or conferences. Plus, there'll be administrative offices and things like that, walking trails, courtyard gardens, so it's quite a structure, and the image of the structure is actually available on our website.
How do we pay for it?
Well, obviously the entire cost that has been estimated by the architects and the builder is about $15 million. Now it's actually, I take that back, it's $13 million, but the 15 includes $2 million that we want to use to build our endowment fund so that we can assure donors that we have the sustainability, that we can be around, so that the interest off of the endowment fund can pay for ongoing operations.
Gotcha.
And so $15 million is the goal of the process. And so we're starting a quiet campaign that'll just go among the Verde Valley here, and the first opportunity for people to see and decide whether they want to contribute, to have their name on something, everything from, if you've got $3 million sitting around, you want your name on the repository, it's $3 million. If you want to buy a brick for the courtyard, it's $150. So we have a whole range of ways that people can contribute. So it'll probably work. If everything works out well, we think we can raise the funds in maybe 2 years and break ground in 2018. At least that's our goal.
Well, everything else has been rolling along just fine for you, so maybe it'll be next year. Who knows, right?
Well, you
so
never
if you
know.
come along with $13 million, so here you go, Ken, $13 million. Go ahead and build it. They will come, right?
You never know.
Right. Now, this land, you've got the pit houses out here.
Yes.
How do you keep yourself from wanting to go in there and start digging right now?
Well, you have to do it scientifically so that you don't, lose any data or destroy anything along the way. So it's a very methodical process. We'll be starting soon to do what's called a surface survey. So we will basically walk the entire area, which we have already, but not to the extent or detail that we need to. We'll be walking it with volunteers. We'll be marking every piece of pottery or artifact that we find. And then once all that's done, we'll then decide just what should we start doing first. And clearly, the area where we're going to be disturbing the soil for building, the parking lot or the buildings themselves, those areas would be examined first. So if we find that there's 1 or 2 or 3 pit houses in that area, those are the ones we'll start doing first. And each pit house could take months to excavate, because it's done slowly. And we'll do that with member volunteers. You know, they need to be members because of the liability insurance and the training that's required. Although we will probably bring in some university field schools where, you know, we will pay for their students to come in. That'll cover the insurance, et cetera, and the equipment they need. And so we'll start doing the excavations probably next year, at least in that area of the building. And then over time, we'll excavate the balance of them. And it could take up to 10 years before we're totally done with all of the sites.
Mm-hmm. And now you're talking about bringing maybe some college folks in to help with this too, maybe interns? Is that possible?
Well, we have every summer we have college interns. We have an intern right now from Hood College in Maryland, and he's working with us. We have another intern coming in August from a college in California. But what I'm referring to is archaeological schools. You know, Northern Arizona University or University of Arizona. We've been talking to their anthropology departments that usually their students need some experience in actual field work, and so they could actually come up as part of their course curriculum and help us excavate.
Well, that'd be exciting for them.
And then there's other places where, you know, you find it quite often. If you there's several websites out there that people can say, well, I'd like to excavate. I don't know anything about it, but I always wanted to do that. And so for a fee, you can come in and get trained and spend 4 or 5 days digging in our dirt. And then
a tourist attraction, so to speak, kind of, right?
Well, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of universities and sites make a fair, decent chunk of change by allowing people to come in and get dirty and dusty.
Okay.
So.
Can you take us back in time a little bit and kind of talk about these pit houses and who they represent, the people, and maybe how many people were living there? And
sure. Pit houses basically are, as the name describes, a pit in the ground. They would make a hole maybe 3 feet deep, usually line the pit then with the rock, and then put up post holes and put a roof on of organic material, and that would usually house anywhere from 3 to 5 people. Usually only during inclement weather. Most of the activities, even sleeping, would be done outside, cooking outside, etc. But they had these structures that during inclement weather or cold weather, whatever, they'd be inside. The one pit house that was excavated on the property did contain burials. The plan is at some point, as part of the park, totally re-excavate and get a grant to actually rebuild the pit house exactly with the wood and everything else as it would have looked like in 650 AD, that people could actually go in and see what did a pit house actually look like. As far as the people that lived in those pit houses, the area here is claimed ancestrally by the Hopi, as is most of the Verde Valley, and a lot of evidence to support that. The Yavapai have a lot of claim to a lot of the area, especially down here. So we consult with the Yavapai Apache Nation locally. We also consult with the Prescott Apache tribe. And frankly, to my surprise, the Havasupai from the Grand Canyon have a lot of stories about life in the Verde Valley.
Oh, wow.
And so they also claim these areas. So, for example, when the burial was found, all 4 of those tribes had to be consulted as to what to do and how to handle the remains. And so were these people all ancestors of the Sanawa? Were they Sanawa? Were they predecessors to the Sanawa? Some of the material that was excavated from that one pit house actually was Hohokam from the Phoenix area. Now, whether that was trade goods or whether this maybe was a Hohokam village, a trading village, we won't know until we do more than just the one excavation.
Oh, how do you keep yourself together? I imagine you just want to jump in there.
Grab a shovel and go.
Right.
Well, again, you could destroy a lot of good, valuable evidence if you go in there and do it too fast.
Well, I didn't mean like a crazy man with a backhoe or anything like that, but you know.
Yes, there's a lot of
history
people,
in there.
There is. There's a lot of history, and actually, for me, one of the more exciting opportunities is that we hear about the paleo culture that was down here, the Clovis culture, the mammoth hunters, the people that were here like 11,000 BC. And the only reason we know that those people were here is that mostly when people are digging wells and they go down 10, 15 feet up in the material they pull up, we find these Clovis points, these projectile points that were used to kill mammoth and giant sloths and all those big game animals. And there's only been 5 found in the whole Verde Valley. So we know they were here and then was scattered around, but no one has ever found a dwelling of the Paleo-Indian people. And so when you get to a place like this particular property where you have a village of 8 to 10 structures, structures that's not that far from the Verde River. And then you consider, well, the Verde River might have been actually closer to this property 1,000 years ago. Well, maybe this village was built on top of a paleo village. So once we excavate what we know of as the pit house, the plan is to go down another 4 or 5 feet to see if maybe there was a paleo site under that, which would be the first paleo-Indian site ever proven and discovered in the whole Verde Valley. Are they there? We don't know. But it's kind of like the intriguing little, gee, what's another foot down?
Mm-hmm. You know? Right, right. All right, Ken Zoll in studio there with the Verde Valley Archaeology Center and Museum in Camp Verde. Stick around, Countywide will be back in just a couple minutes.
They'll test you, try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
That is a pretty good breakfast. You're not even eating.
Not hungry.
No? Why not? What's up?
Kath and I knew that Jenny'd been partying a bit. Found out she tried heroin.
Most people don't know what to say about drugs, but we do. Visit us at drugfree.org.
Hey, it's Ava, and this is Tess from Do Your Selfie, where we recreate the hottest looks from today's biggest music videos.
After cleaning out our closet, we have a lot of clothes we don't wear anymore.
Like this old pile of t-shirts.
It's not garbage, it's actually a new rug.
And to make it, all you need to do is cut, tie, and glue.
Cut the t-shirt into strips.
Tie the strips into knots.
And glue the knots to the bath mat. I love it. Give your garbage another life.
And recycle.
Orkin has pest control down to a science.
When your business chooses Orkin's Precision Protection Program, you get a tailored pest control program for your specific industry and environment.
Your business can benefit from over a century of experience, training, and scientific knowledge that define the Orkin man.
Maximum protection, minimum exposure, backed by one of the industry's most comprehensive guarantees.
Choose your locally owned and operated Northern Arizona Orkin and get more than an exterminator. Get an expert.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a couple minutes left in the program. For more information about the Verde Valley Archaeology Center and Museum, that word, I don't know what it is about that word. 567-0066 is the phone number, verdevalleyarchaeology.org. So 567-0066, verdevalleyarchaeology.org. One other question I had for you before you take off today, security. We're always... You know, I talked to the Forest Service a lot. They're talking about the ruins that we have around here, the sites and the vandalism that occurs. So are we taking steps to make sure the area's protected?
The entire Verde Valley area, or our property here?
Your property.
Our property. Well, yes. Right now there's just a dirt road. Part of the development agreement that saw the property come our way also was the developer gave the 2.6 acres of land to put the road in to the town of Camp Verde. And the town has agreed to actually pave it. At the end of the road, Arizona State Parks and Prescott National Forest own 80 acres along the Verde River, and they have agreed in writing to put in a trail system, equestrian trails, walking trails, river walk along there at the end of the road that goes right in front of our property. And the property across the street from us is currently being discussed for sale and development. So there'll be a lot of activity and a lot of people watching and looking. When we start excavating, we will put up the fencing, and we have started a program, actually Verde Valley wide, called Verde Valley Site Watch, that will include cameras, remote sensing, etc., to protect not only our property but other endangered archaeological sites throughout the entire Verde Valley.
That's good. That's good. It's too bad we have to think about that stuff, but we do have to think about that,
yes.
don't we? All right, Ken. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, pleasure.
So soon. I was thinking, this is Ken's second time this year, and it's just going so fast and so smoothly for you.
So far, so good.
We hope it keeps going for you.
Thank you.
That's today's Countywide. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you again next time.